The effects of the Russia-Ukraine war are spreading to wider areas with each passing day. Russia's aggressive politics and aimless aggression are on the rise in the Baltics. The Baltic Sea and its airspace have faced risky moves by Russian jets, spy ships, and drones many times before. In recent days and months, there has been a serious increase in violations or attempts by the Russian Air Force in the Baltic, but NATO members take very seriously their responsibility to ensure the integrity, safety, and security of airspace in the Baltics. Warplanes assigned to NATO's Baltic Air Policing mission often serve to visually identify Russian Federation Air Force aircraft. Royal Air Force Typhoons is one of the Air Force members continuing NATO's Baltic Air Policing mission. The most important mission of British jets in recent days is to prevent dangerous flights of Russian fighter jets. A large part of the flight activity of the Russian Federation Air Force is due to the geographical situation of the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad. Russian Air Force aircraft regularly fly from mainland Russia to Kaliningrad and vice versa. Often Russian jets approach or fly close to NATO airspace without using transponders, communicating with air traffic control, or making a flight plan. We have faced a similar critical situation recently. The Russian Air Force again tried to make risky maneuvers in the Baltic airspace, but NATO forces were always ready. Here are all the details of this critical moment. British Typhoons and Swedish Air Force Gripens recently took off from an Estonian base to intercept a Russian Air Force spy plane escorted by a Sukhoi Su-27 fighter jet flying close to NATO and Swedish airspace. The Russian Ilyushin Il-20 Kut intelligence collection aircraft was among the aircraft detected in this exchange. Russia's Ilyushin Il-20 Kut intelligence-gathering aircraft was capable of analyzing military communications and signals to assist attacking aircraft or ground forces. However, this Russian warplane flying close to Swedish airspace did not comply with international norms, as it did not communicate about its movement with the relevant flight information zones. So Royal Air Force Typhoons attacked the Russian spy plane twice in just one day near NATO airspace. Typhoons also conducted multiple sorties to intercept two Russian military aircraft traveling south from mainland Russia in the direction of Kaliningrad Oblast. The UK Department of Defense reported that Russian aircraft did not communicate with the appropriate flight information zones, but remained in international airspace and flew professionally. British Typhoon fighter jets then intercepted two Russian Tupolev Tu-22 backfires and two Su-30 flanker aces flying over the Gulf of Finland and the Baltic Sea from mainland Russia. F-18 jets from the Finnish Air Force joined the Typhoon aircraft while escorting backfires and flanker across the Gulf of Finland past them to the Swedish Gripens. Portuguese and Romanian F-16 stationed at Seoul Air Base in Lithuania also accompanied the Russian jets moving south over Latvian and Lithuanian fires. This striking situation came after the UK Foreign Secretary visited the RAF platoon, currently serving in Estonia for Operation Azotus. James Cleverly arrived at Tamari Air Base, where he met with senior RAF personnel responsible for leading the crew involved in intercepting Russian aircraft. As a result, British warplanes were able to intercept a Russian Air Force spy plane escorted by an elite Sukhoi Su-27 fighter jet. Swedish Air Force Gripens joined the RAF Typhoons during the tense encounter, for the first intercept took place close to Swedish airspace. The second occurred when Russian jets flew towards the Kaliningrad Oblast. This was a routine interception that involved pilots and technicians from one squadron from 140 East Wings, fulfilling their responsibility to secure the Baltic skies. UK Defence Secretary Ben Wallace praised the British pilots involved in the response, noting that the interceptions are a stark reminder that the Royal Air Force is always ready to defend the skies of its allies, despite a marked increase in regional activity. Their success in intercepting Russian aircraft continues its normal course for them and is ready to respond to any mission that may pose a threat to regional security. British Typhoons now take off from Amari Air Base in Estonia, where they are usually based as part of NATO's air policing mission. but the Royal Air Force will hand over this task to the Spanish Air Force in August. The Eurofighter Typhoon is a European multinational twin-engine, delta-wing, multi-role fighter aircraft. The Typhoon was originally conceived as an air superiority fighter and was produced by a consortium of Airbus, BAE Systems and Leonardo, which handled most of the project through a joint holding company. Eurofighter, Yax Fallside GmbH. NATO, Eurofighter and Hurricane Management Agency representing the UK, Germany, Italy and Spain, manages the project and is the main client. The Eurofighter Typhoon is an extremely agile aircraft designed to be an effective dogfight in combat. Later, production aircraft were increasingly better equipped to take on air-to-surface attack missions and to be compatible with an increasing number of different weapons and equipment, including the Storm, Shadow, Brimstone, and Model Air missiles. The Typhoon made its first battle with the British Royal Air Force and the Italian Air Force by conducting aerial reconnaissance and ground attack during the military intervention in Libya in 2011. In addition, the Royal Air Force assumed primary responsibility for air defense missions for most of the client countries. In other words, Typhoon, with its incredible speed, maneuverability and modern onboard systems, is the perfect platform to carry out these interceptions. Therefore, the Russians cannot comfortably use their air force in the Baltics to gather intelligence or make any risky moves. All this collaborative work of NATO member and allied countries is provided by the NATO Baltic Air Policing mission for member states that do not have the necessary air capabilities. Agreements exist to provide a single standard of security in European NATO airspace. Since the three Baltic members Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia do not have the aircraft assets on their soils to contribute to NATO air policing, alliance members provide the necessary capabilities for them, especially the UK and Germany's Eurofighter Typhoon jets are among the most important Air Force members we have heard of lately for NATO's Baltic security. Allies are deployed on a 4-month rotation basis to air bases in South Lithuania and Amari, Estonia respectively, and are ready to be launched when necessary by NATO's Combined Air Operations Center in Germany. The Lithuanian, Latvian, and Estonian air forces contribute to the mission with host country support in the form of air command and control, infrastructure, and personnel. Providing equal protection to all member states is an important measure to show the alliance's solidarity, determination, and collective defense not only to current members, but also to our partner countries and potential future members. When the three Baltic states joined NATO in 2004, a NATO air policing capability was established at Sali Air Base in Lithuania. In 2014, after Russia's illegal and illegitimate annexation of Crimea, a second air police presence was established at Estonia's Amari Air Base as part of NATO's assurance measures to Eastern allies. If you remember before, the Russian planes in the Baltics were stopped by the RAFs. Putin's air force was constantly blocked in this critical airspace. Such situations are very common as warplanes serving as NATO air police in the Baltic states are constantly active over the Baltic Sea to detect and escort Russian aircraft violating international airspace flight rules. For example, in recent months, NATO air police warplanes had detected a Russian Tupolev Tu-134 aircraft passing through international airspace from the Russian Federation's Kaliningrad region to the Russian mainland. As a result of long flights, these Russian planes were stopped without performing risky maneuvers and flights in the airspace of the Baltics and Kaliningrad. In summary, the Baltics are now carefully guarded from dangerous maneuvers and flights of the Russian Air Force by RAF Typhoon jets and Swedish Gripens and other NATO air forces. Passage is not provided to the Russian Air Force in this airspace. The Ukrainian war on the territory of Eastern Europe continues in the eastern and southern directions. The eastern front line is held by the fortress city of Bakhmut in the southern front line. The goal is to achieve success on the Crimean route. The Kiev leader's goal is shaping the Ukrainian war. As Zelensky often emphasizes, The war started with Crimea and will end with Crimea. The Ukrainian armed forces continues its efforts on the route targeted by its leaders. Ukrainian troops are achieving significant success in the key area holding the southern front line. Let's take a closer look at what's happening on the southern front line. Speculation about Ukraine's long-awaited spring offensive continues to rise. The developments that triggered these speculations took place in the Nepro River the other day. Images from Russian military bloggers provided the first reliable geolocated image of Ukrainian positions south of the river. According to conflict analysts, Ukrainian troops managed to cross the Nepro River in the south of the country for the first time since the beginning of the Russian invasion. Crossing the Nepro is crucial to the Ukrainian military's goal of controlling Crimea, which Moscow annexed 9 years ago. Ukrainian troops aim to advance about 161 kilometers south of the river, at least as far as the annexed Crimea. This breakthrough comes just after rumors of a partial withdrawal in Russia's Kherson region. As is known, the Dnipro River has been the front line since the Russian troops withdrew from Kherson in November. In addition, according to experts at the Institute for War Studies in the United States, the scope and purpose of these Ukrainian positions, Ukraine's ability and willingness to maintain permanent positions in this area remain unclear. The Russian-appointed governor of the Kherson region denied reports that Ukrainian forces were positioned on the eastern bank of the Dnipro River. The governor stressed that the region is completely controlled by the Russian army. The governor of Kherson, however, acknowledges that sabotage groups may land, but the governor insists that the sabotage groups will eventually be destroyed by Russian fighters or thrown back into the water. Former Kherson Mayor Vladimir Saldo stated in a Telegram update that Russian forces have full control over the area. Vladimir Saldo has suggested that the images referenced by the ICW may be of Ukrainian sabotage units who managed to take a selfie along the Dnipro before being pushed back. Natalia Humenyuk, spokesperson for Ukraine's Southern Operational Command, asked for patience in response to reports in the Ukrainian media that the establishment of certain positions marked the beginning of a counterattack. Natalia Humenyuk did not confirm or deny the ICW report. Humenyuk stated that the details of military operations in the Dnipro Delta cannot be disclosed for operational and security reasons. Humenyuk also mentioned on Ukrainian television that crossing a wide and powerful river like the Dnipro while crossing the front line is a very difficult task. On the other hand, according to the reports of the Institute of War Studies, Ukrainian forces established positions near the town of Voleshki across the Dnipro Delta from Kherson. According to the report, Ukrainian forces are advancing towards the nearby village of Dapki. Is also claimed that Ukrainian troops held these positions for several weeks and secured supply lines. This claim also shows that there is no Russian control in the region. However, Russian military figures are reportedly considering consolidating their current gains in Ukraine rather than launching new operations due to material and manpower constraints. These days are very active on the southern front line of Ukraine. Ukrainians who are trying to advance to Crimea by crossing the Dnipro River are also taking precautions in attacks against Crimea. The armed forces of Ukraine deployed a long-range missile system Grom-2 in Zaporizhia for attacks on Crimea. The Grom-2 missile system has a range of up to 300 kilometers, which allows the Ukrainian army to attack the territory of Crimea. Vladimir Rogov, head of the Zaporizhia movement We Are With Russia, announced that the Grom-2 long-range operational tactical missile system was transferred by Ukrainian troops to the city of Zaporizhia under the control of Kiev. RIA Novosti reported that, according to Rogov, this missile system could be used for attacks in Crimea. Rogov argues that these actions confirm the need to push the Ukrainian troops as far as possible from the Zaporizhia region, and the line of contact should be moved deeper into Ukraine. Earlier, Vladimir Rogov also reported that Ukrainian troops accumulated military equipment in metallurgical factories and granaries in the Orakhovsky and Pokrovsky districts of the Zaporizhia region under the control of Ukrainian forces. The successes of Ukraine on the southern front line greatly alarmed the Russian troops. The Russians, who could not prevent the Ukrainian forces in the Nepro River, have difficulty in resisting the Kiev troops on the eastern front line. Now let's turn our route to what happened in the fortress city of Bakhmut. President Vladimir Zelensky promised to fight in the besieged city of Bakhmut despite the approach of Russian forces from three sides. Zelensky said it is impossible for us to give up Bakhmut because it will widen the front and give the Russian forces and Wagner a chance to capture more of our country. Kiev troops are fighting both Russian soldiers and the Wagner paramilitary group in Bakhmut. The ghost town of Bakhmut offers the Russian vistas from hell. The Russian army has lost thousands of men in Bakhmut in recent weeks. For every kilometer of land captured around the city of Bakhmut, hundreds of Russian soldiers were eliminated. Russia's Wagner mercenary group led most of the Bakhmut conflict. The Wagner group also took a lot of losses in these conflicts. In fact, the majority of the soldiers lost in Bakhmut were mercenary groups. The prolongation of the war continues to negatively affect the Russian army. Russian troops experiencing a lack of equipment and psychological collapse are having a hard time holding on to the front lines. Vladimir Putin's frivolous Bakhmut insistence puts his army in trouble. Russia is almost melting in this small city, which has now become a symbolic conflict between the two countries. But the Institute for War Studies has revealed that Russian forces are focused on capturing Bakhmut as soon as possible before launching Ukraine's much-anticipated counter-offensive. Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin said Bakhmut handed over his north and southwestern flanks to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Meanwhile, the Russian Air Force supports Wagner's main effort in the city, which has been fought over 4 months. According to the War Studies Institute forecast, this air support appears to allow Wagner to make further gains and push the Ukrainian forces towards a withdrawal from Bakhmut. The collaboration between Wagner and VDV shows that the Russian military leadership, which Prigozhin had previously criticized, demonstrates Moscow's desire to hasten the capture of Bakhmut. The think tank said that the pattern of commitment around the city shows that the Russian military leadership increasingly prioritizes completing the capture of the city before the start of the counter-offensive. Vladimir Putin is determined to seize Bakhmut no matter what. Even if Putin's troops succeed in capturing Bakhmut, it will not be considered a win. The capture of this city, which cost the lives of thousands of soldiers, will be nothing more than a symbol of Putin's failure. In addition, the meltdown of the Russian army on other front lines, including Bakhmut, puts Putin in a lot of trouble. Putin is launching new campaigns to compensate for soldier losses to recruit more soldiers. The Russian Ministry of Defense has launched a massive new recruiting campaign for volunteers. The goal of the campaign is to attract 400,000 volunteers. Ads across the country target the masculine pride and financial needs of young Russians to attract volunteers to the Russian armed forces. We will see how effective Putin's new campaign will be in the coming days. As a result, the successes on the southern front, including in Kherson, make Ukraine more determined about the Crimea. The Kiev leader repeats at every opportunity that the war will end with the liberation of Crimea. The Kherson and Nepro rivers will always be in the foreground in the Ukrainian war. A success here will play a role in bringing the Kiev leader to his dream of Crimea. Will this rise, which started with the blowing up of the bridges in Nepro last year, end when the southern front line is completely cleared of Russian soldiers?